Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. Today, I have with me Oliver Prill. Oliver, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's lovely to be in your offices, and Oliver is the CEO of Tide. Oliver's going to share with us, if that's okay with you, for our listeners, a little bit about who Tide are, what the company's all about, please.
Of course. So Tide really believes in helping SMEs. Mm-hmm. So we really focus on small businesses that are trying to set out on their journey, right? So effectively, we have at the center a business current account that's really nice and easy to open. We almost have a 1% market share in the UK, so we've got massive adoption of the product. And we really are about making life easier for them. It's about saving them time so they can actually focus on what they love to do, is to run their business, right? Rather than to worry about banking or administration.
Fantastic. And you say in terms of your customers, they're across the UK, B2B, small from anything to a certain size? What sort of?
So we don't reject anyone that's in business, right?
Yeah.
So we believe to basically serve the sector well, right? We do need to focus on business rather than personal customers.
Course.
So all of them are businesses. We actually call them members. And we fundamentally believe there is a market for doing a current account for businesses.
Yes.
Right? So that's what we always focus on.
Fantastic. And you have about 100 employees in the company. And growing, of course, and you've obviously just moved to new premises here in central London as well to see that growth. It's a fabulous office, I have to say, as well, and I love the design. So it's, I'm sure everyone enjoys being out, and great coffee too.
Thank you
I have to
much.
add. Right, Oliver, can you share with our listeners what a typical day in the business looks like for you as the CEO?
Yeah, so I've been now with Tide for 4 months, so it has changed a little. Right. So in the beginning, it was all about just really getting to grips with the business. But if you ask me now, really, I try to limit my admin to 1/3 of the day. And I think this is a very important one for leaders, that you don't get bogged down with admin. I try to focus 1/3 about making our leaders in the business succeed. And by which I mean is mainly helping them to remove blockers. We work with OKRs, so rather than micromanaging people, we're trying to set common objectives and run with them. So 1/3 is about enabling them to succeed. And 1/3 is forward-thinking strategy and investor relations. So really thinking ahead, not what we're going to do this month or next month, what we're going to do in the next quarters, next years, right? So that's what I try. So 1/3 strategy, investor relations, 1/3 enabling our leaders to succeed, 1/3 admin.
Fantastic. And Oliver, just before we started the broadcast, you told me a little bit about your background. You've obviously got a wealth of experience in the industry, in business life in general. I'm just curious, perhaps, who's had an impact on you as a leader, and perhaps if there was anyone who's been a mentor to you and what value they gave to you.
So, people usually say there is a single person, and I've been around the block a few times now, so over 20 years in business. So I would say many people over the years shaped me. I have to say I'm at the moment with Jeff Bezos, right? What I like about him is sort of his relentless focus on the customer, right? Which I think in the long run is the way to succeed in business. So he's currently shaping a lot of my thinking. I don't like everything they do, but I think there's a lot to be learned. Also an interesting platform strategy, which has similarities to us. But really, I have to be honest, there have been a great many mentors throughout my career. Also people that I've actually worked with, and it's probably too long to list them here, but I'm hugely grateful. I think that's how we all learn, by having mentors all the time.
Absolutely, and a great mentor too. Tell me a little bit about your view on employee engagement, because obviously that's really important to the success of companies, and it's also perhaps changed dramatically from 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago. I'm curious what you do from the top to keep your employees engaged.
So I couldn't agree more, right? Employee engagement, the culture of the company is extremely important. You said things have changed. I think with the millennial generation, people are more conscious about it, but I would have argued for a very, very long time, good companies. I started my career at McKinsey. We always focused, the partners there focused very strongly on engagement at all levels, right? And I think fundamentally what we're trying to do at Tide is first and foremost work on keeping our culture. We've got a great culture. However, as we're growing very quickly, it's very, very important that we onboard people into these cultures. We all have the same language. Secondly, we have a lot of ambitious people. We love ambitious people. We need to give them room to grow. So we do a lot of stuff around how do we safely empower them so they can fail, but at the same time don't break the company. How can we give people learning opportunities, etc. So we're spending a lot of time on that. And last but not least, and you mentioned the office, I think a lot of us spend one heck of a lot of time at work. I don't believe, by the way, in burning the midnight oil, but still, if you just add up the hours you work, you spend probably more time at work than you spend at home. And so it's important to have the right environment, the right sort of atmosphere around, right social events, etc. So we spend quite a bit of time and effort onto that.
Fantastic. And I can see from your website and your social channels that obviously that's very important to the business. So
very, very important. So we call people Tidians, by the way. So we call our customers members and our employees Tidians. And we really do believe there is this great culture, at the heart of it. And we're working extremely hard as we grow quickly to maintain it.
If there was one piece of business advice that you could share with us that you've had over the years that you think that was really powerful, meant a lot to me, what would it be?
Well, probably the simplest advice was focus on the customer, and the rest will take care of itself. And the reason why I think this is very important, I started my career at McKinsey and then at a bank that people can look up on the LinkedIn profile. And there were terrible things like squeeze the lemon meetings about how to have hidden charges. I think all of that is unsustainable, right? If you look at a place like Tide, there's passion. You may have seen some of the posters around the blog posts we have about our members. We feel passionate about our members, and so for us, effectively, the most important thing is to help our members to succeed, because in the end, we are for profit, right? I mean, we're not a charity, but in the end, we will succeed. We fundamentally believe we will succeed if our members succeed. And therefore, we will never, ever do anything that's not in the customer interest. We will always be transparent. I think this is the single most important thing about success, that you keep this relentless customer focus throughout, and you never ever, even behind closed doors, have to think of how can I do something that maybe in the short term optimize revenue or profit, but in the long run is not in the interest of the member, because that's in the end where we believe the fundamental success is.
Absolutely. I'm curious at Tide, what you do to help a new employee understand the culture of your business.
Yeah, so we are changing that actually at the moment. This is, I think, what you said earlier. What does it take? So when we were small, and you mentioned about the 100. When we were maybe recruiting one person a week, it was, say, what I would call natural onboarding. They would just come into their team. They would. Now we realized with the number of people we're taking on, we must make sure that we have this a little bit more structured. So we're starting to develop an onboarding program. That's two parts. One is a company-wide onboarding where they really get to know everyone. They start to understand our values, the behaviors that we like. For example, we like people to have opinions. We like people to reach out. But once things are committed, we also expect people to deliver. So, there are certain things like that we will have as a central onboarding program, and that will then be in addition to, let's say, the onboarding plan in the particular function that, let's say, your area will take care of. But that's a good example of what we're actually working on quite hard, and where you would have said a year ago it's not really necessary, but now with the volume of growth that we're experiencing, it's really, really important to maintain it.